everyone, I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Komet, and welcome to Original versus Remake. Exactly how the title sounds, it's where we take an original film and we compare it to its modern counterpart.
And today we're talking about The Lion King 1994 versus The Lion King 2019 from Jon Favreau.
Yeah, this was a big leap, not the biggest one that we have, but it's a classic.
Yes, very
Absolute
much a classic.
Yeah.
I would also say that for the people that are getting nitpicky about the title, this fits like the true definition of like shot for shot remake. They added a couple things, but I think that fits more overall. And we are going to try to keep this as spoiler free, but if you've seen the 1994 one, you've seen the 2019 one.
They did a remarkable job of doing pretty much shot for shot, which for the most part I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and I want to talk about some good things before we get into the bad.
I agree.
The animation is probably the best animal animation I've seen.
Absolutely stunning. I was blown away with the animation in this. It looked real. Like, there was no moments where I was like, that's, like, obviously not real.
Yeah, and it meant they had to tone back certain scenes, like Can't Wait to Be King wasn't hyper-colorized or anything like that. And that didn't bother me because they just added more animals, more variety, more, like, everything. And it felt like it just worked for what they were trying to do for that. The animators did an excellent job. The trailer showed some things that didn't look great, but you gotta remember when you release a trailer a year early, the last people that get their hands off of the work is the animators that are like, please don't take it from me.
Yeah.
So they're working right up to the end. It's like what happened with the Genie in Aladdin, where that looked better whenever it came out than the actual trailer.
I agree. I have zero bad things to say about the actual technical side of the animation. It was amazing.
Yeah. And as we're like, since we're talking about the remake versus the original, I've always loved that original drawing style.
It's painting.
It's quintessential Disney.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's a classic animation style that they've been doing for generations before, not modern. But even I got to watch a 4K, HD version remastered of it, and even though you could tell that it was very much real paintings and drawings and stuff, I loved it.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where that is always going to hold up. Who knows if this CGI will hold up in 10 years. I think this one will better than most, but that animation is always going to be super stylized and perfect for its time. It was right before you started getting the 3D animation with the painting style animation.
There's no digital along with the
so
classic.
Like, it's just like the pure old school style. I think this was probably 5 years before they started combining the two. So whenever you're looking at the original, you're kind of looking at like a Shakespearean story of loss and everything. I can't remember exactly if it's like Hamlet or Macbeth that it kind of ripped off, but it's an interesting story that works together. It's the old tropes. It's the old the young prince comes back, the prodigal son, all that other stuff, and it works. And in both of these, it's the same story. So we're not deviating much from there. But the thing I liked a little bit better about the original was that they did a few scenes that tied things together better. You
mean the remake?
Yeah, in the remake. In the remake, you had Nala's story a little bit more, where you saw what she had to do to get away from Pride Rock instead of just showing up in the tropical paradise.
Yeah.
You had a few more things. It was a slight shift whenever Scar went to the hyenas. That's when he struck the deal with them, whereas he made it seem like it was a long-term thing before. And there was actually something...
how Scar got his scars was because he challenged Mufasa to become king, and I think that is a huge umbrella that needs to be established that was not in the first one.
Yeah, they didn't... That establishes a much higher motive and why he needs the hyenas. Because I kept thinking, did he really need the hyenas? Why would he share his kingdom with the hyenas? But it's partially because he can't challenge Mufasa, and partially because he knows that the lionesses aren't going to stand for his pride. Whenever they know that he was a defunct, failure of a challenger. I think there's a lot more just from a few lines of dialogue that made that much stronger.
They also, what I thought was really cool is they explained the circle of life way better. I didn't even know that you needed to do that, but they're just with a few lines between Mufasa and Simba when they're patrolling the Pride Lands, is that they kind of tied up some really nice loose ends that I didn't even know that I wanted tied up. And that was really surprising, and I loved that.
Yeah. It was like they got a second draft for
Yeah.
an already good movie to add some interesting one-liners. Like, the impact of the laughs wasn't as good for me because I heard most of the jokes before, but there were a couple that got me that were really good. But as far as making the dialogue stronger, making it so that Mufasa had a bit more wisdom and the connections between these characters were a little bit stronger, they definitely did more with that. But it's not all good.
Yeah, so, I mean, we could probably do an entire segment on what we love about the original. But right now, I'm just going to compare the two. A big thing for me, and I get the animation, they wanted to keep as true to realistic animals as possible. I totally understand that. I just wish they would have done a little bit more for emoting any sort of emotion whatsoever, even because you don't need to have the exaggerated face emotions or a face structure, what would you call that? Expressions.
Yeah, the expressions of the animation.
Yeah.
Like, you're already messing with them a lot to make them talk, which, by the way, didn't really get in the way.
No,
Like,
not at all. But there was zero expression and there was no eyebrows, and guess what? Lions have some sort of eyebrows, some sort of muscle in there, and same with ears. They could have done so much more with conveying scared or surprised or really anything other than just pinned up ears all the time.
Yeah, and it was funny because it's like I know they had a ton of animators that had to be working on this. Like, there was probably an animator working for 6 months on a 5-second scene, and there were a few scenes where you actually saw the ears moving and things like that whenever he's like prowling at the beginning, going for the pounce on Zazu. And they did a few scenes really well with that, and then a few scenes where it was just the actors, and I think they did better in the original cartoon of adding the human emotion element to it.
Or even like, okay, one very specific thing, and I think this is huge, is that when Mufasa goes and saves Simba and Nala, and they're bringing him back, and he's like, I gotta teach my son a lesson. You know, in the animation, he like sinks down and he knows that he's in trouble, and it's not even like there's much expression in his face, but the expression of sinking down and putting his ears back and everything conveyed that he knew that he was in big trouble. In this
it's a very
remake,
cat behavior.
Yeah, in this remake, he just stood there, and you were just like, there is no. In a lot of the scenes, there's not that type of emotion that could easily just be conveyed with him putting his ears back. And I was so disappointed with that.
Yeah, so like the animation as far as the technical fur, the face, the movement, great.
Beautiful.
Lacks in emotion.
Yeah.
And the cartoon did a very good job with that. Like, you don't, sometimes things can try to personify animals too much, especially whenever it's talking animals, but this didn't do quite enough to tell the story with emotion. And some of that comes back to the voice acting, I think.
Yeah.
And I was skeptical of this in the trailer. Because whenever I heard the voices, I was like, this isn't right. Although they got the same guy to do Mufasa. They got James Earl Jones to come back for Mufasa.
So
but you can hear the age in his voice.
Yeah.
It's been 25 years.
I think James Earl Jones's original performance for the original Mufasa, blows this next Mufasa out of the water. And I don't know if that is just purely because he is getting old, and I love that they honored him by putting him in this other one, but I strongly think that if they would have put Mufasa in, they should have put in Jeremy Irons. Jeremy Irons. He
he played the original Scar,
that's
so that would be
what I
kind
mean.
of a cool transition to him being the dad character.
Yeah, I think in the original Lion King, I love James Earl Jones, Jeremy Irons blew it out of the water. I think it's the best voice acting performance I've ever heard in my entire life.
It's one of my favorites. That was one of the things that had me like, what a... It was something I missed. And whenever I was watching it, I watched the original one today.
Same here.
And it was hard for me to, like, get over how good he is as a villain. Jeremy Irons is one of the best voices, like, ever. You can actually get a bunch of audiobooks where it's him reading.
Oh, I want to do that all day.
Like, you can get like Lolita, you can get like all sorts of other things, and you can just you get to listen to Jeremy Irons talk for 15 hours. It's great.
And just that performance in general, every single one of his scenes gave me goosebumps, and I'm not huge about ASMR, and I don't think it was that type. I think his performance was amazing.
Yeah. And, like, the thing is, he doesn't even have the best singing voice.
No.
And the best song in the movie is his song.
And I gotta say, in the remake, they cut it. They castrated that song.
They definitely, like, they took the heart out of it. And that's the biggest thing that I was reading from reviews before on this movie, is that this movie lacked a little bit of the heart of the original.
Yeah.
And I think that that's true. And I'm not the biggest fan of Matthew Broderick as a voice for Simba, but I think he did fine.
I think he did better than...
Like, this was Donald Glover for the new one, which Donald Glover's a good actor. I don't know if Jon Favreau worked enough in the booth with these actors to get the force out of them that we needed here.
I actually just watched a video today right before we went that... so I think this movie took like 3 years to make, and in between that time... Donald Glover actually lost his father, and so they went back and did a lot of the scenes, redid a lot of the scenes to help him convey that emotion and everything, and I was really looking for that, and I just don't think it fit for me.
Yeah, and the thing is, Donald Glover's a great actor, but he's very, very good.
Yeah.
I just don't know if it can translate to, like, put all of this emotion into a box where you're just like talking into a microphone with no one else to bounce off of. And there are directors that can do that, and Jon Favreau's done it a fair amount because he did Iron Man, he did all these other things where there's a lot of people on like
he did
on
Jungle
sets.
Book.
Yeah, he did Jungle Book, which definitely qualified him to make this movie. I can't exactly put my finger on what it was that didn't work. Even Scar's new voice wasn't that bad. It just doesn't measure up to Jeremy Irons.
Not even, like, I kept on, and there was moments that I really got pulled into it, and I think the character in general, for me, Scar in the original is an absolute master manipulator.
Yeah,
like, he can
much.
twist anything into looking into his side, and I just didn't feel that with this one, and I don't know if it was just the line choices that they had. Like, they cut some major lines out of Scar's dialogue between Simba that made that master manipulator edge just kind of be dull.
And, like, they, in some ways, tried to bring that back a little bit, but, like, whenever he was manipulating the new hyenas, which I actually think these hyenas were better.
I liked Whoopi. I liked the whole, like, they were, like, more carefree.
That does seem a little bit more like hyenas. It's just, this one was a more sinister.
It was very sinister.
What was, like, her name? Starts with an S. It's a very African name. I can't remember I
thought it was Z's. It was, just keep on talking, I'll look it up.
But the way, like, they brought those in, hyenas are terrifying. People, like, sleep on hyenas being, like, scary. And if you've ever been on, like, Nature is Metal, which is basically one of the craziest Instagram/Reddits.
Butt. Oh,
yeah, they eat butt first. Like, they'll go into an elephant's butt and just go forever. But, like, they are terrifying animals with some of the most powerful jaws on the planet. And you actually get to see a little bit more of...
Shenzi.
Yeah, Shenzi, who was done by... What's her name?
Florence Kasumba. Kazumba.
Which, she did fine. Whoopi Goldberg did great with the other one. But it's very much, you can tell it's Whoopi and Cheech Marin.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's not
very
distracting for others.
Yeah.
Like, it was a little distracting for me, but it wasn't like I hated them. I just thought that, like, it was a little bit different.
For me, the original hyenas, it was very evident that they needed somebody to guide them. They were obviously, like, the brutes and everything like that, and they could be the muscle, but they didn't have enough confidence or, like, tolerance or leadership to be able to lead their pack to it. In this one, they had that. So they just kind of rode on Scar's coattails for... I don't really
just
know.
to get to the Pride Lands. Like, that was all they were getting from it, because, like, you could tell that the leader we were just talking about actually is intelligent.
Yeah.
And she's a lot more, like, she's on top of things. Mm-hmm. They did a little bit more with the fighting scene between, like, at the end with the lions fighting the hyenas, but because it's a PG movie...
Yeah.
Was it G or PG? It's got to be PG, because there's, like, death and everything.
Yeah.
Like, but the thing is, like, you see so many of these strikes that would straight up murder a hyena, but they can't show anything like that. So it's a lot of, like, hyenas getting thrown around instead of killed.
I do gotta say that the fight scenes in the new one were really good.
Yeah.
But that's just because the animation, like I said, was just incredible.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment... Well, yeah, and I just think in general, the voice acting in the new one just didn't cut it quite. I hated Beyonce. I did not like her voice acting very much, and this is segue into the new ones. I did not like her performance in the song. It was way, like, they tried to make the song really, like, sing-songy with Beyonce doing her thing, which she's an amazing performer of, you know, kind of like the Mariah Carey, like, I don't know what the word is called, but
there's a lot more bravado in that than like a love song of that nature. Completely
unnecessary, and it took away, I feel like, from the scene. And then her original song or whatever that was in it was
that
awful.
Was atrocious.
I hated it. She literally said 2 words the entire time, doing that thing again, and I just didn't think that it was necessary at all.
Thankfully, it was only like 30 seconds of them running on dunes, but it felt longer because it was just not a good song. But if you get Beyonce in the cast, you're going to get an original song because, like, you're going to cash in on that.
Right.
But, like,
I have a problem with Beyonce.
She's just not an actress. Like, she's not an actress to start with. And there are a lot of qualified people you could have gotten to do a better job on the voice.
I agree.
The Young Lions, that kid sounded like Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yeah. But I think the soundtrack just didn't hit it.
Yeah, and this is a Hans Zimmer soundtrack, by the way. Like, Hans Zimmer is the guy who did Interstellar. He's the guy who's done, like, Inception. Like, he did all of those. Like, and... Like,
I love this soundtrack.
Whenever the fight scenes are going, it's a good score.
Yes.
But I think he was, like, roped in on certain things or not given enough time on the project for some of the other music, or they were trying to stick too much to the original
Be
songs.
Prepared was castrated.
I don't know if he was the one that castrated that song, though. Like, I think they just did, like, the score for all the other things on his and then had some other people doing the singing here.
Fair. That's probably fair.
And it might have been him. Who knows? Like,
I just don't get why they would... Maybe that's just because they didn't think that was the type of... Scar that he was in this one?
They changed the way it happened in that scene because he was the leader before and he was trying to convince them now. But maybe they just thought it was way too over the top because, I mean, he's on, like, a geyser rising into the sky and stuff like that. So, like, the animation is definitely toned down for that scene. But it was over in, like, 33 seconds. And, like I said, that's my favorite song from the original. It's hard to please me with musicals. Like, I despise musicals. So for them to take, like, one of the few shining lights out of any musical, it's one of maybe 4 good songs in all of existence in any musical ever. Like, for them to castrate that is a bad thing.
Yeah, well, and I think it's probably because they changed, I feel like, the character of Scar. I think that's one of the main ones that they actually, like, changed is, in the original, he's this very, I feel like, arrogant, almost flip character.
Yeah, he saunters a bit.
And he like knows that he's better than everybody and kind of he flaunts. But in this one, he was very much like a reclusive and all that stuff.
Sometimes even broken looking.
Yeah,
like, they did a really good job on making you understand that he got messed up. Mm-hmm. Like it's not even just the scar on his face; it's scars all over his body. The mane is all just like mangy. Like he's just not a good looking lion.
No,
there's. Like, he is the bottom of the barrel genetics-wise.
Mm-hmm. And I got a sense, like, in the original is that, and they just cleared it up in the remake, is that Scar was just second in line, and because he wasn't the, like, jock of a brother, he just was more of the intellectual, sneaky guy, you know? And that's not the case in the new one.
Yeah, because in nature, it's like red in tooth and claw. Usually the big guy's going to be the winner. Occasionally we'll get one that's clever enough to actually do something, and that's the story of, like, Scar using his intellect to get there. I feel like in some ways he was smarter, and in some ways he was just more incompetent. It's so weird how you can have both in, like, that singular character.
Well, yeah, and I was just thinking that maybe that's why they changed the song, is because he wasn't, like, in the original, he's talking about, it's just his whole persona is very off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just Jeremy Irons being awesome. We're gonna keep coming back to Jeremy Irons being, like, a treasure for all of us.
Okay, overall, what'd you think?
Overall, I would say that there's going to be a lot of kids that really enjoy this that probably haven't experienced the new Lion King. If you saw the 1994 Lion King, you're not really missing anything by not going to this.
Yeah.
I can't say it's a must-watch. If you really dig the Lion King, go see it. Like,
if you want to see a beautiful animation, and also when we come into these now, we have to use a really critical eye, especially when we're comparing it. So we're we're most likely being nitpicky.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. But that being said, if I probably would have walked into it with, just having fun with another friend, I would have been entertained.
Yeah.
It was just beautiful to look at overall.
Yeah, it's one of those that's getting like a 60 on Rotten Tomatoes. That, like, if you have a drink or two, or you go with your kids and it's their first time, you get to see the joy on their face, it'll jump up to an 80 in the right mindset. Like, it's not something, like, critics are going to like because it has a little bit of flatness to it. We've seen too many movies. We're jaded by the entire life. Like, we're just, basically, we're just pissed on by bad movies all the time. So whenever somebody takes mercy on us, we're just a little bit better about it.
Yeah,
but this one, like, it didn't do enough to elevate it. And we were surprised by Aladdin, let down.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was. It's not Aladdin. Like, I feel like Aladdin did a much better job being a remake or a reboot or whatever you want to call it than this particular project. And I'm surprised because I really like Jon
Favreau.
Favreau. I really enjoy him, and
go watch Swingers.
Yeah, or even Chef. He hasn't seen it, and that's insane. That movie's amazing, especially being somebody that I would never call myself a chef.
You went to culinary school. You were a chef.
But I was expecting more, and maybe that's why we're a little flat on it.
I went into this with almost no expectations because I had just enjoyed watching the first one, got all those like member berries and that nostalgia, and I was like, it could do it. It could bring it back, but it didn't have. I think it's easier just with real actors on screen to capture the essence. Instead of like whenever you're filming, you're literally just bringing a track camera around and filming like open spots and then animating things later. I think it's a little bit easier to bring that emotion and bring all that out whenever you do that.
Yeah.
And that's not to say they should never attempt things like this. No. It's just it didn't quite work, and it's still gonna make a boatload of money for Disney.
Well, right, and this is a big. I mean, I think Lion King is everybody's favorite growing up. It was a big bite to chew, and for the most part, they did it okay. I think we were just yeah. So if I had to pick, I would always pick the original, mostly because of Jeremy Irons, because he is just amazing.
Yeah, that scar is definitely the Scar. It's like I know that I'm not even gonna pronounce his name. It's like Etoifor or something like that is his last name. He did okay. But you can't do that. You can't take Jeremy Irons. Like, we didn't think that Will Smith could do it for Robin Williams, but he was different enough. They didn't. It just wasn't there.
Well, right, and I think if you didn't I literally just finished watching the original an hour before I saw this one. So I think if you aren't putting them right next to each other, you'll enjoy yourself. Or sure. If you're not as much of a fangirl as we are about Jeremy Irons.
All right, I think that's going to do it. Thank you guys so much. Please hit that sub button. Leave a comment and tell us what you think or what you thought of the new movie, what you're worried about with the new movie, and share this with a friend.
Yeah, and we will check you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.